What's up guys, Lvladen here, and today I'm coming at you with the Templar Retribution Paladin PvP guide. Now, a lot of the intricacies that go into playing a Paladin PvP, I'm going to keep that information in my other videos such as gear, stats, and macros. This is going to be a guide specifically on the Templar rotation and play style. All the other information you need is going to be in my other guide, which I will link in the description of the video. All right, let's get into it. So before we talk about the rotation and gameplay of Templar, there are a couple things that I want to go over involving the talents and how they work for Ret. The first thing I'm going to pull up on the screen here is a text image picture of the testing that I did on the beta, making sure, one, that all the damage modifiers for Hammer of Light worked, and two, how exactly that they worked. All right, so when I did this, I made sure all my gear was always the same, and I had no procs. I didn't have like Authority of Radiant Power proc or Trinket proc in between each test value here. So the first thing you'll see is baseline. So this is just regular Hammer of Wrath, no Judgment or proc or Blessing of Dawn. These numbers about the same, 728k per. And by the way, I was using full Gladiator gear at this time because the testing was done on the beta, so the numbers are going to look a little bit higher than what you would see if you went and tested on a dummy right here. Then with Judgment and no Blessing of Dawn, you can see that the number did increase. So Judgment is in fact working with Hammer of Light. Excellent. And then one stack, so no Judgment, just one stack of Blessing of Dawn. You can also see that Blessing of Dawn does affect Hammer of Light. And then baseline with two stacks of Blessing of Dawn. Now I had one test with a crit, figured I might as well add that in there. It does in fact function with two stacks of Blessing of Dawn. Now I wanted to see if Final Verdict worked with the spell here. So the spell, Final Verdict, is a 15% single target damage increase in the PvP combat. And without Judgments, without Dawn Lights, without procs, but only the Final Reckoning debuff, the spell did 809k damage and 819k damage. So that would mean that there's a potential small bug. The expected value would be 137k valued at 15%, or an expected value of 783k at 7.5% increase, because technically Hammer of Light is an AoE spell. It's not a single target spell. So this means that Final Reckoning might be increasing, Hammer of Light somewhere between the 7.5 and the 15% value. But I mean, numbers vary in this game. There's always, I think, something like a 5% variance. So I can't tell for sure, but it does look like it's a little bit closer to the 15% increase than the 7.5% increase. Now I tested out the baseline Hammer of Light with two stacks of Blessing of Dawn and a Judgment on the target, and as you can see, it did more damage than just two stacks of Blessing of Dawn. So these modifiers do all work together. Excellent. And then another test here with two stacks of Blessing of Dawn and a Judgment and a Final Reckoning, and as you can see, all the numbers went up to the highest value we've seen so far, which means all these modifiers do work together. And then finally, I did Crusade with 10 stacks, two stacks of Blessing of Dawn and Judgment and Final Reckoning. So the Omega combo, the highest damage combo that we can get out aside from having some proc or on-use trinkets and Authority of Radiant Power. We got a 3.2, or basically a 3.3 million crit, and then four non-crits for about 1.6 million each. That all felt pretty great, and just from an outward perspective after these tests, it does look like all the damage modifications are functioning correctly, aside from maybe Final Reckoning, but honestly, it was still pretty close to the expected value. So even Final Reckoning is probably working as intended. All right, let's go over the next quick number sheet. Now, the next thing I'm going to explain is how Radiant Glory and Crusade and Avenging Wrath might all affect Hammer of Light here. Specifically, how Crusade stacks actually work, because Crusade is the better play for this specialization. All right, so the first thing we'll test out here, or that I'm going to show you guys the results for, is Crusade. Now, to give a little background on Crusade and Radiant Glory, if you use Wake of Ashes and it immediately procs a 1-stack Crusade, as it does, your next Holy Power spender always benefits from however many stacks it would give you. So for example, you press Crusade, you have 1 stack of Crusade, and then you push a Final Verdict. Now you're at 4 stacks of Crusade. That initial Final Verdict benefits as if it hits with a 4-stacked Crusade percentage damage increase. So if you are playing Radiant Glory plus Crusade, your initial Hammer of Light is always going to benefit as if it was at 6 stacks. That is a 14% damage increase. I verified this on the training dummy with a bunch of different tests because a lot of people were asking me in stream, hey, why are you playing Crusade rather than Avenging Wrath Might? Wouldn't it make more sense to have that 10% damage increase rather than a 3% damage increase on that first Hammer of Light? And this is the reasoning. So if you take a look at the numbers here, Crusade at 14%, 6 stacks in PvP. I had no procs, no Blessing of Dawns, and I did apply Judgment onto the target for all 8 of these tests. Crusade came out on top by a little bit every single time, whereas Avenging Wrath Might remained around the same value, but lower, which makes sense because the Crusade is increasing your damage by 14% on that first cast of Hammer of Light, whereas the Radiant Glory Empowered Avenging Wrath Might would only be 10%. All right, now that we have all of that data out of the way, let's talk about the Paladin Templar rotation, which as of a couple days ago changed massively. So for the longest time during beta and the beginning of the War Within, you could only use Hammer of Light either immediately after casting a Wake of Ashes with 5 Holy Power, or when you got to 60 stacks, you get a free proc of Hammer of Light. However, as of 2 days ago, you can now use Hammer of Light as many times as you can generate the 5 Holy Power within that 12-second window. And some people have been saying it's a bug, some people have been saying it's intended. I actually think it's intended. If you take a look and read the tooltip, Wake of Ashes is replaced with Hammer of Light for 12 seconds after it is cast. Hammer of Light, cooldown, that big damage, costs 5 Holy Power. It doesn't say like your next press. It says replaced for 12 seconds. And because it says that, I actually think that the way it's currently functioning is intended. I think it got bug fixed or hot fixed or patched, and they just forgot to add it to the notes. I do believe, and I'm pretty sure this was how it originally functioned in alpha, back when you could only, you could immediately hit like level 71 with all the hero talents or something like that, and you could only explore Isle of Dorn. Pretty sure that is how Hammer of Light originally functioned, and then I guess throughout the course of the beta, it became one use. Now, do I think this is OP? I actually don't. I've done a ton of Templar testing. My damage, even with this change, is relatively the same compared to everyone else. And even after these extra uses of Hammer of Light, I still do more overall damage on Herald, which, by the way, was recently bug fixed. So I think that we can comfortably say that this Hammer of Light rotation is going to be like this going forward. So let's talk about it. Basically, the only thing that you really have to pay attention to in the Templar tree is this middle portion here. So your Empyrean Hammers are the additional part of Hammer of Light that gets called down. I take Zealous Vindication, and that allows you to reset or get to the 60 stacks for the free use of Hammer of Light quicker. I also take the choice note of Sanctification because I'm not really pushing Hammer of Wrath too often in this rotation anyway. So anything to make the Empyrean Hammers hit a little bit harder is great. And then I also try to maintain, and this is how like you got to try and play the Templar Paladin, is you have to try and maintain your Shake the Heavens buff by using Crusader Strike, Hammer of Wrath, and Blade of Justice after you push your Hammer of Light. Now, with being able to use Hammer of Light multiple times within the 12-second window after it's cast, you don't really have to worry about managing this I'm sorry, you don't have to manage this until the last Hammer of Wrath, or Hammer of Light. What am I saying, guys? Sorry. Too many hammers. We need some new names for these spells here. And once again, we have another name for a hammer here, Hammer Fall. So Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm call an Empyrean Hammer down on a nearby enemy, and while Shake the Heavens is active, this effect calls down an additional Empyrean Hammer. So this allows us to reset the cooldown, or I'm sorry, not reset the cooldown, but get that free proc of Hammer of Light faster. Now, if you go to a dummy to test these abilities, the dummies are bugged, but they do in fact correctly function with players. So if you're trying just to test out your rotation and you're like, oh my god, my Empyrean hammers aren't falling with Hammerfall, it's just a dummy bug at the moment, luckily for us. And Shake the Heavens is a melee range aura buff. So what that means is if you're being kited by just a single person and you have no mobs around you, after about, I think it's like about 8 yards, 7-8 yards, your Hammer of Lights will not fall from your Shake the Heavens buff onto your target. That is just the way it is. All right, so let's get into the ideal opening rotation or burst rotation for Templar. So if you guys are playing the same Templar talent setup that I play here, the ideal burst opening rotation is going to look something like this. You're going to judge into a Blade of Justice. What that's going to do, it's going to apply your Greater Judgment and your Holy Flames Empowered Expurgation for a little bit more damage. Then you're going to apply your Final Reckoning to further increase the damage of your Hammer of Light. Then you're going to Wake of Ashes into a Hammer of Light, into a Divine Toll. Typically in most PvP scenarios, you're going to have enough targets around you to immediately press a second Hammer of Light because of the way that Divine Toll is going to generate all that holy power. But if not, your immediate priority to reach that next holy power, that next 5 holy power goal is going to be to prioritize your Templar strikes if you are in melee range, and Blade of Justice if your expurgation is about to fall off, or Hammer of Wrath if you have maybe like 3+ seconds on your Blade of Justice expurgation dot remaining. All right, let's do an example. All right, so we're gonna Judgment, apply Expurgation, Final Reckoning, Wake of Ashes, Hammer of Light, Divine Toll, second Hammer of Light, double Templar Strike, Blade of Justice, and then third Hammer of Light. And then we just go in there and we just spam as many Templar Strikes as we can, and Blade of Justices, and Hammer of Wrath to extend the Shake the Heavens buff, and, you know, get as much progress towards that 60 stacks reset as you can get. And that is more or less how the Templar rotation works. Next up, I'm going to show a little bit of PvP gameplay. No commentary here. This is about it for the guide, guys. Thank you for tuning in and watching, and I hope it's helpful. And again, I'm going to leave a link in the description to my other full Retribution Paladin guide, which has all my macros and add-ons and whatnot, and links to gearings and all the extra stuff that I did not provide in this video. One more thing to note, the Blizzard dev team has been going absolutely ham on the bug fixing, and I wanted to give them a shout out for getting on top of the ret bugs so quickly. However, there are a number of bugs that are still in the game, and I'll briefly go over the hotfixes in a moment, but the Sacred Shield and Sacrosanct Crusade bug here are still in the game, even though it was said that it was fixed. I'm not entirely sure if it requires a realm restart to fix, but if I push my Shield of Vengeance and then I Wake of Ashes, I do not in fact get a Sacrosanct Crusade shield yet. Let me just show you guys what I mean here. So if I go to display capture, where are we at here? All right, so a couple amazing bug fixes right here. So fix an issue that allowed grounding to work on Hammer of Light, and the same with Blink. Very nice, very nice. A couple of other non-PvP related bugs right here. Very cool. And then if we scroll down to a couple days ago, where are we? Right here. Fix an issue that caused Sacrosanct Crusade to disappear when Shield of Vengeance was cast. This is not in fact fixed. This is actually still in the game. So I'm not sure if it requires a realm restart, but you know, it's really nice to see that Blizzard has been going ham on these bugs and trying to squash as many as possible. All right, guys, that's about it for me. Thank you for tuning in and watching the guide. I appreciate it, and enjoy the arena skirmishes. Peace.